Games suck now because of stupid money. What kind of stupid money? What are we talking about here? We talking about money with an agenda? A political agenda? An ideology? A mind virus? Paid by propagandists who are trying to change the world and their vision? Is that what's going on here?
Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. I'm going to talk about stupidity in gaming. We're going to talk about stupid money crippling the video game industry. And this is pretty interesting. This is coming from the former PlayStation boss saying that, you know, games have cost too much.
Yeah, we've been seeing this from a lot of former devs, former bosses saying that, like, hey, these companies have been enshittified. They're experiencing rot because of political agenda and weird propaganda money.
There's been too much free money floating around and budgets have ballooned, and that is what's hurting the video game industry. I would agree in part with that, but where I would disagree is that is the sole reason. The thing is, when there's lots of surplus money, you hire lots of surplus people, and some of those surplus people,
and you've always got to make something bigger and better than the last thing,
don't do any work. They're actually anti-help. They're activists. They don't want to actually work. They want to get their opinions in there. You've got,
yeah, they have an agenda and they want to do as little work as possible, so they use AI to do the actual work that they need to get done.
20 people doing the job of 2 people. You know what I'm saying? A lot of bloat, and we're seeing it now. We're seeing the failure of all these bloated, expensive, DEI-infused games. In fact, Nick Tech here has kind of a list of some of the games.
For the longest time, people were telling me that I was crazy. I was looking too much into it. I need to get a life. Because this is not a problem. It's not happening. Look where we are. We were saying this was going to lead to this over a decade ago. In like 2012, 2014. We said that this was going to go out of control, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. What is it going to look like in a decade? Well, here we are. Worse than we could ever have imagined it. Like, $250 million plus for a lot of these games that just completely fail. And I think a lot of it has to do with fraud and money laundering and, like, using money for things that shouldn't be used for, like throwing $30,000 parties.
Have failed just in the last year or two. Some of the biggest misfires in video game history. Hundreds of millions of dollars lost. But we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, again, Geeky sitting this one out. Check out badorcs.com, badorcs.com. Help us out here a little bit. Get some enamel pins with orcs doing very bad things. Very low budget. It's a very low budget campaign. So this is coming from GameDeveloper.com. Former PlayStation boss says stupid money crippled the game industry. Is it Yoshida? Shuhei Yoshida offers his take on the recent industry implosion and ponders whether there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, this was actually a couple of weeks ago. I missed this, but it kind of goes along with people noticing that AAA gaming is imploding, right? I mean, you have to be living under a rock. And it's not just the alt-right chuds on YouTube. It's not just, you know, Gamergate 2 or whatever the hell they're trying to say. It's like, look, so many games have failed catastrophically. I can't remember in my...
Yeah, I think it was COVID. I think COVID... It didn't start with COVID. It started really in like 2016. That's when identity politics really started to become a thing. It started before that, but 2016 is where we really started seeing it, like on Twitter. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And then COVID locked everybody down, made everybody insane, made all these companies completely change how they operate. And I don't know what happened. It's like everybody was online all the time. Nobody was able to leave their houses, really, or they just like chose not to, basically. Everybody was shut down. Everybody was working from home. And it just like made everybody hyper-focused online into politics and identity and like what's a problem and what isn't. And then everybody's mind just stayed focused on it. And we never got off it. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. just like we said it would. And we knew that it was gonna crash eventually. And here we are, Pride Month 2025.
At least in my adult life, this many games failing, this many high profile games failing, just back to back to back to back.
Yeah, and then you got people coping, saying they weren't failures. Look how many copies they sold, or really, look how many players they had, because they don't want to expose how many copies they actually sold.
Clearly, something is wrong, right? And you look at the games that have actually succeeded in the last couple of years, and a lot of them were kind of low budget affairs. Helldivers, Pal World. This year we have Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Split Fiction. Is Split Fiction doing okay? I don't know. But we have a lot of games that really weren't super expensive games to make. And what they're bringing back that people are getting excited about, things like Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. I'm seeing a lot of 16-bit style games being announced.
Yeah, people are embracing the nostalgia. They're embracing games of the past because they were so much better. They had so much more heart and soul, even though they're not technically better, but they feel better. And there are so many games that so many people haven't played. My backlog is basically infinite. I'm gonna die before I get through 10% of it.
A lot of games that are done with just a pretty small dev team. And he's talking about Astrobot being an amazing game and only costing them $50 million.
Only $50 million. That's still way too much money. That's still so much bloat.
Back in the day, Nintendo, some of the greatest games on Nintendo were just a handful of people. So anyway, during a wide-ranging chat, Gamescom, LATAM, or whatever. So this was a couple of weeks ago. Yoshida said it remains totally possible for the industry to become truly sustainable, but claimed that would require the biggest players and investors to stop treating the market like a fabled golden goose. This is really interesting. What we've been seeing for the last 2 years is just the adjustment to the misjudged spending by so many companies during the COVID days.
Yeah, just like I've been saying, COVID made everything crazy. And the people never snap back to reality. They still think that we're in a pandemic.
He was talking about that and then pointing to the M&A spree undertaken by Embracer Group. Yeah, most of what Embracer Group bought wound up getting sold off or shut down.
Didn't they have Borderlands for a little while?
Many companies and even analysts believed the crazy growth during the pandemic would continue, so they overinvested and overhired, and they started too many projects. But after COVID, there were a lot more ways for people to entertain themselves, so the growth slowed down. Look,
yeah, and they got too much into the political trends that were going on during the COVID days that they think are still going. And nobody wants that. Throughout time, everyone has always given celebrities shit for getting political. And now every celebrity is political. And everybody hates it. Imagine that. Normal people hate celebrities now. Didn't used to be like that. It used to be that normies loved celebrities and they were ingrained in the pop culture. And now everybody thinks that they're evil pedophiles.
Telling you what's going on. Gamers are playing old games. They're playing older games. They're not buying the new AAA stuff. They don't.
Yeah, true. And when I do buy new games, it's usually like an indie game or like a breakthrough title that I'm a super fan of. Definitely going to be buying Resident Evil 9. That's happening. I haven't been burned by a Resident Evil game yet, actually. I even enjoyed Resident Evil 6. I got that on launch. I think I've got every Resident Evil on launch since Resident Evil 5. I got that one on launch. Loved it. Loved Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 7. I think I skipped the Revelation games. I haven't even played the Revelation games now that I'm thinking about it. I've only played the mainline Resident Evil games and the remakes.
Trust the new AAA stuff for a number of reasons, beyond the politics. It's a predatory business practices. It's quality issues, right?
Yep. Exactly why I'm staying away from it. Also, like, the pricing. The pricing is out of control. Well, games cost more and more now, so we have to price them more and more. That's not how it works. That's not how it should work. That's not how it's gonna work, because I'm not gonna be paying more and more for games. I'm gonna pay less and less, actually. If you want me to be paying $80 now instead of $60, I was paying $30 for games. Now I'm going to pay 20 out of spite.
These AAA games are shipping half baked, lots of bugs, lots of errors.
Yeah, they mistake people like me for people who actually care about the gaming industry. If you don't play Assassin's Creed Shadows, you're a bigot. If you don't like Assassin's Creed Shadows and don't say that it's a 10 out of 10, and that it's an absolutely crazy good, amazing game, return to form, you're a bigot. If you don't agree with me, which, by the way, by definition, makes them a bigot. Anybody who calls anybody a bigot is actually, by definition, a bigot.
Look at Star Wars Outlaws. I mean, that thing never should have shipped when it did, but they had to ship it because investors expected a big hit in was it Q3 or whatever that year, and it actually backfired and cost them a lot of money because the word got out the game wasn't any good, and that was it. That was the end of the sales.
It doesn't even actually matter if the game is good. If it's not hitting right in the industry at the time, then people aren't going to buy it. Look at Doom: The Dark Ages. Like, it just wasn't the right vibe for the time. Wasn't the right time for it. People weren't really that into it. Good game, great game even. Just, didn't hit just right. That's why breakthrough titles keep coming out like Schedule 1, where people are like jumping on board. Everybody's about it. It just was the right game at the right time.
I mean, you're better off spending more time, less money overall, taking more time to put something out that's polished and, having gamer goodwill, but also realize people play games now longer than they used to. Again, we're not in the NES era. We're not in the PS1 era or even PS2 era, whatever, where you buy a game, you beat it, you move on to the next thing. Now people are playing games for 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah, there are some games that I play like that. A lot of games I don't play like. I have got like 2 or 3 games. Nah, there are a lot of games that I come back to, though. I guess that counts. There's probably like 10 games that I just keep playing that I always go back to. Civilization 5, No Man's Sky, Minecraft, Borderlands 1 and 2, sometimes the pre-sequel. I'll play that one every once in a while. I usually leave that one out of the lineup, but sometimes I'll pick it back up. Subnautica. Subnautica's a game that I like to pick back up and replay again sometimes.
So you have to realize that too. Some people, it's like all they play is Fortnite. All they play is Minecraft. That's it. They don't need anything else. So you're going to be...
Yeah, if I didn't have any other games at all ever, and all I had was Minecraft, I'd still be happy with that.
Be hard pressed to sell them on something new, right? So Yoshida described the situation that has left thousands of developers out of work as very sad, but claimed the stupid money that helped spark that age of overinvestment has departed the video game industry in search of the next big thing. The stupid money. Again, stupid money, hiring stupid people. I've seen this happen time and time again, where companies think the gravy train is going to last forever.
Yep, and they also, a big problem they have is like, they'll hire these companies to help them manage their companies, and a lot of them are woke, and they're like, well, you have to get all these problematic people out of here, and you have to get diverse people in here. You're not diverse enough. That's a big problem. And that just, ingrains that kind of culture into the whole process, and it gets worse and worse and worse to the point where the executives have the mindset of the people at the company, even though they really don't. They just don't want to get canceled. They want to keep their job because you got to get rid of anybody who's a problem, right? You step out of line an inch, they'll have your head.
And they go out and they hire a bunch of unnecessary people. They take a bunch of chances on projects that maybe they shouldn't have greenlit. And we see the exact...
Yeah, and they probably greenlit a lot of projects at the same time. So they have, like, at one time, they've got wokeism in their development, in their ideology, their identity. Might have been just for like 6 months that they had that in their heads. But they already greenlit all these projects and started all these projects that they have to see through, and they can't just restart a bunch of them. That's why I think a lot of projects got canceled from places like Warner Brothers and EA and Activision. They canceled a whole bunch of projects.
Same thing in streaming right now, in television. All this garbage that got greenlit because there was stupid money And so much of it's already been canceled. So many people are already out of work.
So much of it is not even canceled, and they're having to push through with it because they spent too much money, too much time on it, and they just got to do it. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender Season 2. Apparently that's still going to be a thing. Harry Potter TV series. Don't know why that needs to exist, but apparently that's coming out.
This is so many of these streaming services are consolidating, or they're cutting loose, different streamers or channels. I mean, look at HBO, man. They're just like Warner Brothers. They're throwing everything overboard.
Yeah, Amazon Prime.
That doesn't make money. Yoshida feels diverse portfolios and smaller projects can deliver stability. Does that mean there's cause for quiet optimism? He believes so, but feels the largest companies need to begin sensibly investing in portfolios.
I think that the largest companies are going to keep producing slop, and it's going to get worse because they're going to be like gasping for air, trying to pull anybody else under so they can stay afloat. And eventually there's going to be nobody left alive. And they're just going to end up drowning, and they pulled everybody down with them. And then we're just going to have people building new boats, better boats, boats that won't sink. And some will still sink, but will be better at making boats.
Rather than pinning all their financial hopes on a handful of gargantuan projects with no margin for error. Yeah, again, this is where, and I know people hate me talking about it.
Yeah, they have to be perfect. They have to be perfect, and they have to beat all of the records that the last game broke. The last game broke all the records. The game before that broke all the records. Eventually, you stop breaking records. Eventually, people fall off. They don't want to consume your product anymore. What do you do then? Spend more money? Change the way your audience works? How you pander to your audience? You pander to an audience that doesn't exist, a wider, modern audience, to try and throw a wide net to catch everybody, and it completely misses.
Whatever. This is where the ethical use of AI comes into play, I think, with video games and with Hollywood. If you can get those budgets down, you can make more games. You can make more movies. And you're not.
Well, yeah, and they'll take that and they'll make a whole bunch of AI slop because corporations always cut corners. And if it's just good enough, then it gets to make it. Because I think we can monetize people with this.
Not taking as big of a chance. Instead of having one $200, $300 million movie, you might be able to make a bunch of $25, $50 million movies or games or whatever, and be able to take those chances. And look at what some of the biggest hits have been in the last decade plus.
I think the big AAA stuff needs to sit around 20 million, and indie stuff needs to probably be around 1, 2, 4 million, something like that. I think that's a good sweet spot. That's where we need to be as like a culture. Doesn't have to be the biggest, best, over the top thing. Realistic graphics, diverse, gotta pander to everybody, modern audience. That's what's gonna happen.
It's been stuff like, Five Nights at Freddy's and Minecraft, and you know what I'm saying? So you don't need to have this ridiculous budget. You just have to make good games.
And new games. You have to come up with new ideas, new IPs. You can't just keep making the same thing over and over again, slightly change something about it.
Right? He said each product is different. Some live service games are successful, like Helldivers 2. You can't just take one product or model and say they're all wrong, especially with entertainment products. Nobody can predict sales, especially when new IPs are tried. He said, I've worked with marketers in the past and they always miss the numbers. So what big companies should do is invest in a portfolio of titles, because if they just invest in a small number of titles, it's a huge risk.
Take that $300 million, $400 million, invest in like 8 small titles. One of them's going to be a hit. Some of them are going to be small hits. Some of them are probably going to flop. Companies used to do this, and we used to get amazing games all the time. But we would also get a lot of mid games and a lot of slop. But we were in a better place. We got more games. Look at the early 2000s. Any given year. Look at the lineup of games that came out in those years. It was crazy. More than 20 bangers every year. Now we get one every 3 months.
Even when you invest in existing successful franchises, because people's taste will change. I think that's kind of going on with Square. right now is that they're overly reliant on Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, and those have historically been good sellers. But
Yeah, and they also for a while tried to pander to the Western audience, to the modern audience, and it wasn't really working.
like Squaresoft, before it became Square Enix, used to spitball all kinds of different RPGs, action games, even a couple fighting games here and there.
Yeah, if you look on the PS1 and the Super Nintendo, you'll be like, oh, is that an RPG? Is it made by Square? Yes, because there was like 30 or more, just random RPGs, and a lot of them were great, and a lot of them were mid. A lot of them, you know, kind of missed the mark a little bit. But that's just the way it goes. Got too many eggs in one basket now. If, like, you can't drop the basket. If you drop the basket, the whole thing crumbles. We got no food, nothing left, we're gonna starve. That's what these companies are doing to themselves.
And now it's just like, oh yeah, here's the next Final Fantasy. And it's kind of the same with Ubisoft. They bet everything on Assassin's Creed. They bet everything on Rainbow Six, and now they're having to spin that stuff off into a different company just to save it. It's like they should have been coming up with new IP the whole time. Like, yeah, come out with a new Assassin's Creed game, sure, because that's kind of your bread and butter. But like, you should be making new kinds of games. And Claire Obscure, Expedition 33 slipped through their fingers because the guy who did that, his team, they were from Ubisoft.
Yeah, they should make a game that's kind of like Assassin's Creed, but not really, with like magic and witches and fairy tales and stuff like that. Oh, they're doing that? Oh no, it is an Assassin's Creed game. Assassin's Creed Hexe, whatever. They could have just not made that an Assassin's Creed game and been like, this is kind of like Assassin's Creed, kind of like Watch Dogs was kind of like Assassin's Creed, but different. So it's a new thing, it's a new IP. And then they could work off of that, and then they could have Assassin's Creed and whatever this thing is. But now, if this Assassin's Creed Hexe, whatever the stupid name is, they should have chose something else. If that succeeds, then they'll have two Assassin's Creeds that are completely different from each other going at the same time. And it makes no sense. And it's unsustainable. People will get Assassin's Creeded out, even if they're not really Assassin's Creed games. Just the name alone will make them tired.
I mean, it slipped right through his fingers, or through Ubisoft's fingers, right? So, like, I mean, this is just kind of common sense, but I think Disney does the same thing. Disney's all like, oh, let's double, triple down on Marvel, Pixar, whatever, but at least within those umbrellas, they're actually doing some different stuff. These companies don't. And so what's going on is that all these nimble independent companies are coming up, and they're giving people what they want, and they're doing a fraction of the cost. He says big companies have to compete with rivals of similar size and stature, and budgets can quickly balloon as competitors attempt to outdo each other.
Yep. And now the indie and retro market is starting to take over because you all fumbled the bag. You fucked it up. You let the basket's bottom fall out and all the eggs fell out. You got a few that survived. You picked them back up and you put them in your pockets. And you're scrambling to try and save as many eggs as possible. And it's real bad, man. They should learn that they need to start competing with the retro and indie market.
The antidote to that budgetary arms race, he says, is to realize that sometimes the limitation is really helpful for studios and developers looking to push themselves creatively. In a sentiment that chimes with the advice handed out by Astrobot director, is it Nicholas?
Yeah, and instead, every company's using Unreal Engine. And the cope that I see is that, oh, well, it makes things easier on the developers so they can focus on other things. It doesn't need to be easy. We don't need to make it easier on developers. Oh, and it allows them to make a bigger and better product than the last thing. Doesn't need to be bigger and better. It just needs to be another just as good game, story, whatever you're trying to do. It needs to be just as good. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be just as good. You can miss the mark a little bit. It's okay. Make another one. It may be worse. It may be better. It may be the best one. You never know. Make something new. I don't know where I was going with that. I was just rambling. I hate these giant corporations. They're so fucking stupid. They're not in it for the love of the game. They're in it for the love of the money.
Doucet, he reminded attendees that it's okay to make a small game. Yeah, they said a lot of choices.
Yeah, compete with retro and indie games, or you're all going to inshitify yourself out of existence.
If Astrobot can be labeled AA or maybe lacking in ambition, like the size of the team, the size of the game, the fact there's no text, no voice, not an open world, but that doesn't really matter. We still made a game that made people really happy, and in fact was probably the simplicity of it that a lot of players made time for it. Yeah. Look, there's a reason that Nintendo keeps releasing their old games again and again and again. They're timeless. And those games, even though they were, I guess for Nintendo, were like the AAA titles, a lot of them didn't have massive teams, not like you see in the Western space, right? Even Final Fantasy VII, like you look at how many people were involved in the original Final Fantasy VII, and there were a considerable number of people involved in Final Fantasy VII back in the day, compared to the remake team. And even then, when Final Fantasy VII came out, people were like, "This game is bloated." And I think at the time, I'm not looking up, but if I remember correctly, at the time it was like $40 or $50 million, which was kind of unheard of for a video game. But they had to go buy all the Silicon Graphics workstations and all that stuff, so they were able to kind of spread that cost, over the course of many games. They did for PS1, everything had the CGI cutscenes and all that, but it was unheard of back then. And now it's like the norm. It's like, it only costs $50 million. It only costs $100 million. Right. So here, this is come from Nick Tech Official on X. These past few years, we definitely had some of the absolute worst game launches of all time. And I think these things are connected. Here's a mega thread of the worst game launches since 2020. Okay. So you got Cyberpunk 2077, which it redeemed itself, but
Yeah, but it definitely deserves that #1 spot. It was so bad that it got delisted from the Sony PlayStation Store.
the launch was not good. Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy Definitive Edition.
That was probably the funniest one. I saw so many glitches, so many facial glitches. Everything looked wrong. I loved it. I loved everything about it.
Had bugs. Battlefield 2042.
I forgot that was even a thing.
Saints Row reboot. That was so bad that the company wound up going out of business.
That one was sad because I'm such a big Saints Row fan. I love Saints Row 2 and 3 especially. 4 was kind of weird, but I like that game too.
That was an Embracer thing.
Yeah, Embracer. I think they're the reason Borderlands is so shit now.
Gotham Knights. Nobody wanted this.
I don't know anything about Gotham Knights.
Yeah. Let's see here. Babylon's Fall.
Yeah, I remember Babylon's Fall. I watched Moist Critical Charlie, Penguin Zero. I watched him play it.
Forspoken.
Oh, yeah. I watched so many people play this game. Asmongold's playthrough of this game was my favorite.
Square needs to stay. Like, Square.
Yeah, it's one of those games where they were pandering to a Western audience and it completely failed. They need to stop doing that. Make games for Japanese people. That's the reason people love you.
Give us more JRPGs. That's all we want. Like, Stellar Blade should have been something that Square would have done, even though it's an action game. I get that, but that feels more in line with what Square would have done in the 90s compared to this. This was not a good idea.
I don't even know about this Walking Dead game.
Walking Dead Destinies, Skull Island. I didn't even know that came out. Gollum, that came and went like a wet fart. Crime Boss, Redfall, The Day Before, Suicide Squad killed.
The Day Before was an actual scam.
The Justice League.
Yeah, and I think Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That was like an Anthem level disaster that they, for some reason, kept going.
$300 million loss for Warner Brothers. Skull and Bones, that was the quadruple A title for Ubisoft.
Wow, rumored to be in the $650 to $850 million range. Biggest gaming failure of all time.
They said that the development costs were...
Honestly, this should be #1, not Cyberpunk. I think Cyberpunk hurt the most, but I think this should be #1 just because of how much money, how big of a failure it was, how long it took.
Reportedly $650 to $850 million. Does anybody play this game?
Is it still alive? Like, is it still going? I thought they shut it down. There was something I heard about them shutting it down.
I don't think anybody plays this game. Let's see what else we got here. Unknown 9 Awakening.
I saw some people were playing it and I wasn't even interested in it. It looked like an even worse Forspoken.
That was a massive failure. Dustborn. That was SJW, the video game. Activist, the video game. It's just...
Concord at 18. I think it probably should have been higher. than a few of these titles. Concord and Dragon Age: The Veilguard, because they were just like abysmal failures, especially compared to the last Dragon Age games. Like, Dragon Age: The Veilguard was such a slap in the face. And Concord, you know, it straight up just failed immediately.
Terrible. Concord, that was another flop. Dragon Age: The Veilguard, Star Wars Outlaws, pretty much every AAA title. Mind's Eye.
Yeah, there's Mind's Eye, the newest entry.
Yeah, I heard that was pretty bad too. I haven't really looked into this one too much, but yeah, it was nowhere near a finished date to be released. It suffered from performance issues.
Yeah, that's what happens whenever companies don't send out review copies. What's wrong with your game? Every single time, man. The only ones that can get away with it are Nintendo.
And most importantly, lacking basic features that made the game feel like a tech demo, more like a tech demo than a finished product. Yeah, this is pretty bad. It's all bad. It's like, how come we're spending more money than we've ever spent on video games and they look worse than they've ever looked?
Fraud, identity politics, money laundering. You know how it goes with people who get involved in way too much money. Always tends to happen. Criminality. People love money too much. They're too greedy. And also, they're lustful, so they base a lot of things on sex. They're also liars. Like, pretty much all of the worst sins, these people love. They practice a lot of it. All the time. Terrible people. Gross people.